Right, I'm live. Well, so, right. The Bible prophesies about these days. It prophesies in the writings that are given to the general public, and also in the writings that were given to the wise only. Because there are two scriptures. One is given to the wise, and one is given to both the wise and the unwise. Why? Because the most precious things are trampled to the ground by evil people. That's why they do not receive them. And they get a head, a brain, that even despises these writings. So that to this day, as Isaiah prophesied, they will not take heed to his words. Where did he prophesy that? Well, not in the book of Isaiah, but in his other prophecies or in his other writings. Because the prophets have published more books than these things. One of the most precious things, probably, what I would say, would be what Ignatius wrote to some pastor named Polycarp. This is probably the most precious thing. Ignatius, bishop of Antioch. What is a bishop? Well, in former times, pastors were called bishops. What are pastors? Pastors are not elders. They are elders, but they are more special than elders, and it's just one pastor. Today you have senior pastor. You could call that one a bishop. But the Catholic Church took it for themselves, the term, so evangelicals do not use that, but evangelicals also have wrong terms. So it doesn't matter which words you use. If you fight about words, you do it for the destruction of the hearers, so you will go to hell. That's what Paul said. It is catastrophe in Greek, the destruction of the hearers. Ignatius, bishop of Antioch, and a witness for Jesus Christ, to Polycarp, bishop of the church of the Smyrnians. Smyrna, the church of Smyrna. People in those ancient days, they did not have just the writing of John to Smyrna. They knew what Smyrna is. And long after Smyrna, 1,000 years later, they still knew, because they had more writings than you do have today. Yeah, and even 300 years ago. Bishop of the Church of Smyrnians, or rather, who has as his own bishop God the Father and Jesus Christ. Abundance of happiness, or wishes abundance of happiness. I put that in brackets, some words, but they also belong into the text. But if it was not found in the manuscript, it's put in brackets sometimes. I've explained the brackets in the foreword. Having obtained good proof that thy mind is fixed in God as upon an immovable rock. I loudly glorify his name, that I have been thought worthy to behold thy blameless face, which may I ever enjoy in God. So Ignatius calls Polycarp blameless, according to the apostles, who always said such things, that you should live blameless. You know, a term evangelicals never use, except Richard Baxter. And he was thrown out of the Westminster, assembly for saying that the gospel is having a high standard and being able to reach perfection. He was, according to many people, most close to the message of Paul, which is why I have in former times translated some of his things but left out the leaven, which he was entangled with because he was also a murderer of Christians. But according to many and according to himself, if you judge it correctly, he was the evangelical that was most close to the real gospel. Even you could almost say that he really preached the gospel, being almost the one and only exception among evangelicalism. And he is known as having preached the gospel in a way that no one else did. He was a Puritan. They were murderers, But as with the Pharisees, keep what they say, but do not do according to their deeds. Blameless face which I ever enjoy in God, I entreat thee by the grace with which thou art clothed, to press forward in thy course, and to exhort all that they may be saved. Exhorting all that they may be saved. That they may be saved. This is the language of the apostles, What did Paul say? What did they all say? What did Moses and everyone in the Old Testament say? Yeah, work out your own salvation. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Your salvation. Maintain thy position with all care, both in the flesh and spirit. Doesn't it sound like Paul writing to Timothy? Have a regard to preserve unity, than which nothing is better. No one has unity today in evangelicalism. You have to be one in every asset, not just in the basics, but every asset of theology in everything. If you're not one, you are at strife, and you are, according to Paul, one who practices the deeds of the flesh, and you will go to hell. Bear with all, even as the Lord does with thee. Evangelicals also don't do. No church does. I'm not just talking about evangelicalism. I'm talking about Catholicism, evangelicalism, the whole of Christendom. No church is doing that. Show me one. Show me one. Show me one. We are a church. We keep all these things. Tell me one thing that we don't do. Tell me one thing of all people that do know me. Ask them that know me. Ask my enemies that know me best. Ask them. Support all in love as also thou doest. Give thyself to prayer without ceasing. Implore additional understanding to what thou already hast. Be watchful, possessing a sleepless spirit. Speak to every man separately, as God enables thee. And so on, and so on, and so on. Just wanted to give you an example. Ignatius to Polycarp. This is scripture. This is scripture. This is scripture. When was it written? Well, it was written even before Ignatius, as the other scriptures were. But you are just given the scriptures that are not miraculous, really, that are very, you could say, according to the flesh almost, that are, speaking in parables, speaking not clear, speaking not about too lofty things, so that even the unwise have something to read about God. But if they keep all these things, they go to heaven, of course. But when they kept all these things of the scriptures that were given to them, they will be given more scriptures, and it's not a hidden knowledge as Gnosticism or some weird thing or twisting the words of the apostles and of Christ, but it's something that explains all the parables of the scriptures that are given to everyone and talking in clear, plain language as the Old Testament does not do, as Christ does not do, nor the apostles do. Why? Why are the prophets unclear? With among themselves, they talked clearly, and in the other writings, they talked clearly. Moses too. And even in the historical accounts, they were not saying what was right and what was wrong, as with Jephthah or other things. You don't know, was it right, was it wrong when he sacrificed seemingly his daughter? Well, in the other writings, you know the background, you know what God said, you know why he said, you know the judgments, you know what came to this, how it came that this situation has come into fruition, and all these things are explained, you know, in the other scriptures. Well, I have to go read something, I think. I continue later.